Welcome, everyone. Welcome to really a very exciting evening, Caribbean Voices, Contemporary Architecture and Practice in Puerto Rico. I'm Jesse Keenan. I'm Associate Professor of Real Estate here at the Tulane School of Architecture. And I just have been looking forward to this all semester. It's a real personal highlight for me. And enough for me. Let me go ahead and introduce really our moderator and someone who helped get us here this evening. That's Victor Nieto, who's a licensed architect in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He's currently the president of the board of directors of the Puerto Rican Architecture Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public about architecture, landscape architecture, and design in Puerto Rico. Victor completed his bachelor's of architecture at Cornell University and a master's of science in real estate development from Columbia University. He was recently a visiting professor of design at the University of Puerto Rico School of Architecture. And in 2021, Victor received the Hector Aker Quintero Award by the Puerto Rican Architects Association for his contribution for the promotion and of responsible urbanism through community service. So Victor, please take us and lead us in tonight's journey. And thank you really all of our speakers and our guests tonight for joining us. New Orleans is often and long considered the northernmost part of the Caribbean. And we have such distinguished alumni all throughout Puerto Rico, and particularly the School of Architecture. And tonight is really a highlight for all of us. So thank you very much for joining us. Victor, please take us.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Let me share my screen a second. Okay. I would first like to thank the team at Tulane Architecture for the invitation and for organizing this event. Many thanks to Professor Keenan, Kristen Jones, and Dean Iñaki Alday. In this evening's event, Caribbean Voices, Contemporary Architecture Practice in Puerto Rico, we will see the work of two architecture firms, Ayala Rubio Arquitectura and Coleman-Davis Pagan Arquitectos. As a means of introduction, I will speak briefly about Puerto Rico and its architectural heritage and how it informs contemporary practice on the island. As Professor Keenan mentioned, I am president of Fundación por Arquitectura, which translates into the Puerto Rico Architecture Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to the education of architecture, landscape architecture, and design in Puerto Rico. Our programs include walking tours, lectures, K-12 education, including an architecture and design summer camp, an arts and design fair, as well as publications and short video documentaries about architecture. You can find us at www.fxapr.org or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're interested in anything that has to do with architecture in Puerto Rico, this is a great place to start. Part of what we do through our programs is tell the story of architecture in Puerto Rico and show how the built environment can help us understand our history. From the Spanish colonial to the tropical modern, Puerto Rico is endowed with a rich architectural heritage that is wide-ranging in time periods as well as architectural styles. Today, I want to give you a glimpse of this story and give some context to the contemporary work we will be seeing later this evening. This presentation is not meant to be comprehensive. I intend to present some of the main architectural themes and important events that have had an impact on the architecture of the island. But first, let's start with some basics about Puerto Rico. We are located in the Caribbean. This is us down here. This is New Orleans up here. We're currently a territory of the US. Puerto Ricans are US citizens, yet have no voting representatives in Congress, and we do not vote for president. We spent around 400 years under Spanish rule before becoming part of the United States in 1898. It could be said we are currently the oldest colony in the world, but for the purposes of this presentation, let's just say it's complicated. We are located in the tropics, so temperatures can range from 90 degrees to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and we get our fair share of rain during the year. Our location also puts us in the middle of Hurricane Alley. Hurricane season is a particularly tense time of year for us. And I'm sure it's the same for residents of New Orleans and other areas of Louisiana as well. Puerto Rico is actually an archipelago. It has a main island, and it has smaller islands like Culebra, Vieques, and Isla de Mona, and some smaller keys as well. We currently have a population of around 3.2 million. Even though we're sometimes perceived as a small island, we have more population than 20 of the states in the Union. We are 3,425 square miles, which is about the size of Connecticut. You can drive across the island lengthwise in about 3 to 3.5 hours. Most of the population is concentrated in the San Juan metro area, up in the north, and in other large cities such as Ponce in the south, Arecibo in the north, and Mayagüez to the west. A mountain range, right in the middle, divides the island into two climate regions. It's humid in the north, and it's arid in the south. And this green space right here, that's the Yunque tropical rainforest. So this is the San Juan metro area today. And up here, this is old San Juan. It's where I want to start this story. So let's go back a few years. Since it was founded in around 500 years ago, San Juan has been a fortified city, strategically located at the entrance of San Juan Harbor. And for most of its existence, it remained that way. City life happened inside the protection of the walls. One of the things we have to consider is its urban form. San Juan was founded under the planning guidelines established by the Leyes de las Indias, or the Law of the Indies, issued during the 16th century and revised many times afterwards. These were an entire body of laws issued by the Spanish crown that controlled social, political, religious, and economic life of the American and Asian possessions of the empire. These laws also regulated urban planning, and they called for a rectilinear grid of streets whose direction was chosen according to the prevailing winds at the site. They also called for creation of a central square, or the Plaza Mayor, with the church and government buildings. They stated that the colonists shall try as far as possible to have the buildings all of one type for the sake of beauty of the town. Similar to San Juan, we can find this in cities all over the Americas, like in Veracruz, Mexico, and as far as Manila in the Philippines. This was also true for most of the towns in Puerto Rico. They all show variations of the same urban model. Today, Old San Juan maintains its original urban form. Its location, density, and architecture make Old San Juan a truly magical place. You transition from narrow cobblestone streets, interior patios, to churches that are centuries old. Architect and historian Jorge Rial and students from the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico developed the rooms of a city, a walking tour map of open spaces and hidden historic patios in Old San Juan. This was a great tool to discover and understand the urban spaces of Old San Juan. You can see in this close-up the variety of these spaces. And you can also see all these smaller interior patios that belong to residences along the city. The most prominent building in Old San Juan is the Colonial urban townhouse. These houses feature thick masonry walls, high ceilings, hardwood beams, and interior patio, large frame doors, and windows with balconies. The windows and doors are an important design feature, as their large size and integration of operable louvers and glass transoms permit the occupants to control the light and ventilation of the house. Or they can just open them completely and flood the room with natural light. In his book, Old San Juan, Tools and Interventions, architect and conservationist Jose Silvestre Lugo gives us more insight into these homes. The interior patio is a key architectural feature for the integration of cross ventilation, natural light, and capturing rainwater into a cistern below the house. Sounds like centuries-old lesson in sustainable design. Once in San Juan, it is hard to escape the Great Wall or Muralla and its many guardhouses and garitas. The military architecture is also an important part of our heritage. In this respect, the documentation work carried out by Puerto Rico Historical Building Drawing Society has been very important, from understanding the architectural proportions of the guardhouses, to identifying critical military infrastructure along the wall that surround the city, some of which no longer exists, to the detailed drawings of important military fortifications like El Morro. For most of its history, San Juan developed within the fortified walls, and for good reason. The city effectively defended itself from various attacks coming from land and water. But one last attack would change the future of the island. In 1898, during the Spanish-American War, the United States attacked and invaded Puerto Rico. As a result of the war, the island became a possession of the United States. This transition would become truly consequential for the architecture of the island. For a long time, the surroundings of Old San Juan were an important part of its defenses. The stretch of land to the east of the walls constituted a series of defensive lines that were to be used during attacks by land. As the new century dawned, and are now part of the United States, residents of San Juan felt the need to expand the city and thought that the land defenses would no longer be necessary. Towards this aim, a large portion of the eastern wall was demolished. The demolition of the Spanish military wall was symbolic. It would pave the way for the US government to have a new architectural presence in San Juan and Puerto Rico, one that would contrast the architecture of the outgoing Spanish government. The open space adjacent to the old city provided a blank canvas for a new set of civic and government buildings that radically changed the architecture vocabulary of the island. A new entrance of San Juan was created, flanked by impressive new buildings of great size and beauty. These buildings included the San Juan Public School No. 1, the Casino in Puerto Rico, the Carnegie Library, and el Ateneo Puertorriqueño, all built between the turn of the century and the 20s. Without a doubt, the crown jewel of the group would be the Capitol building, home of the new state legislature. Almost half a century after its construction, it is still one of the most iconic buildings on the island. During the first decades of the 20th century, the US invested heavily in new public buildings in Puerto Rico. Schools were particularly important to guarantee the socioeconomic transportation of the island and the teaching of English as well as American values. New schools were built across the island and also became laboratories to test new building materials, including reinforced concrete and cement blocks. This building boom required many designers and builders. Many immigrated from the US mainland and Europe. One of them was Anthony Nicoloma, a Czech architect who moved to Puerto Rico and introduced the prairie style to the Caribbean. He also incorporated many arts and craft elements into his designs. The Georgetti Mansion, built in 1923, one of Nicoloma's largest and most notable buildings, sadly now demolished, incorporated a version of the window we saw in old San Juan townhouses. Again, special attention paid to ventilation and natural light. While we had buildings like the Georgetti Mansion, it is important to understand that most of the population in Puerto Rico lived in poverty during the first half of the 20th century. In 1941, President Roosevelt named economist and planner Rexford Guy Tugwell governor of Puerto Rico, and in collaboration with Luis Muñoz Marín, then president of the Senate, Tugwell's programs would initiate a much-needed socioeconomic transformation for the island. This period's impact on the architecture of Puerto Rico has been studied by historians Santiago Gala and architect Andres Mignucci. As Mignucci describes in his essay, Neutra en Puerto Rico, reforms undertaken by Governor Rexford Guy Tugwell and Luis Muñoz Marín transformed the island from a poverty-stricken and underdeveloped enclave in the Caribbean to one of Latin America's leading models of progress and development. Tugwell and Muñoz embraced modern architecture as part of the image of the new Puerto Rico and as a symbol of their avant-garde government. In 1943, the Committee on Design of Public Works was created. and worked on large-scale building program focused on housing, education, and health. A solid team of professionals, of design professionals assembled, and Austrian architect Richard Neutra was hired as a consultant to the committee. Mignucci states that architect Richard Neutra is a foundational figure in the history of architecture in Puerto Rico. His work as a principal architect and consultant to the Committee on Design of Public Works between the years of 1943 and 1945 played a pivotal role in the formal development of the island's nascent modern architecture. He adds that despite the limitations and difficulties regarding building and execution, specifically those due to the war moratorium, Neutra's Puerto Rican sojourn with the Committee on Design of Public Works was a metamorphic experience. It was transformative for the island and its people who benefited from an unprecedented building program funded on the principles of social justice and collective well-being. It was transformative for the architects that remained and came to age during the following decade, leaving the imprint through what has been known as Puerto Rico's tropical modern architecture. 3 architects from the committee would have a lasting impact in Puerto Rico's architecture. They were Henry Klum, Osvaldo Toro, and Miguel Ferrer. Henry Klum was a German-born architect who served as one of Frank Lloyd Wright's first apprentices at Taliesin. He moved to Puerto Rico by invitation of Governor Tugwell and became one of the main proponents of tropical modern architecture in Puerto Rico. Historian Santiago Gala describes Klum's distinctive architecture the following way. Klum fused the organic principles inherited from Wright, the vocabulary of the international style, and certain peculiarities of the local context. In his essay, Brise Soleil, The Skin of Henry Klum's Architecture, architect Jose Lorenzo Torres speaks about Klum's facades. Much has been written about Klum's work and his desired almost predicament to produce an architecture adapted to the tropics, located to benefit from cross ventilation, guaranteeing its habitability without exposing it to unnecessary energy consumption. He adds, those who have encountered his work in person recognize the protagonist's role the sunscreen or brise soleil system plays in the architectural experience, especially the way in which these diminish the sun's impact, contribute to privacy, and in many cases security, and their capacity to merge the interior spaces with the surrounding environment. Toro Ferrer Architects is also an important exponent of tropical modern architecture in Puerto Rico. Examples of the work include the Caribe Hilton Hotel and the Supreme Court of Puerto Rico. In his essay, Toro Ferrer Architects, architect Juan Marquez Mera describes their work the following way. Toro and Ferrer's initial architectural production has the strength converted by fair proportions, careful articulations, elegant project solutions, and implementation and incorporation of exterior spaces. He adds that it's not an individualistic expression, but rather a rational architecture, thought out more than felt, whose guiding lines are comprehensible. So I asked the question, what is architecture in Puerto Rico about? I believe it's about understanding the past, learning from it, but not recreating it. It's about negotiating between the inside and the outside, the building and its context, be it social, political, urban, or natural. It's about controlling and taking advantage of the sun, the tropical breeze, and the rain. It's about the view, from the clear blue sky to the lush green tropical landscape and the great horizon provided by the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. Today, architects in Puerto Rico are still dealing with the same issues and a couple of new ones. The sun feels more intense as global temperatures rise. The tropical breeze and rain can become deadly with more frequent and stronger storms. Climate change and sea level rise create new paradigms for our coastal cities. These are great challenges indeed, but also great opportunities for innovative design solutions as well. On that note, I end my presentation with this quote from architect Henry Klum. In everything we do, in minor and in major work, the architect must respect the past, reflect the present, and protect the future of what we hope and imagine the future as a whole should be. And yes, that is Henry Klum in his hammock, surrounded by all these beautiful palm trees. Today, I am honored to present two colleagues that I greatly admire and respect, and whose work exemplifies the spirit of contemporary architecture in Puerto Rico. They are both alumni of Tulane School of Architecture and join a distinguished group of local practitioners who also studied at the school. Luis Ayala Rubio is a licensed architect living and practicing in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Luis graduated from Tulane University School of Architecture in 1993. He gained professional experience at the offices of Virgilio Monsanto Associates in Ponce, Architectural Devices in New Orleans, and architect Jose Ramirez in San Juan. He established his own practice in 1995, currently Ayala Rubio Arquitectura. The studio is currently working on various post-disaster reconstruction projects, including the rehabilitation of the historical Teatro La Perla in Ponce and new facilities for an adult daycare center in the mountain town of Villalba. The studio's private work is mainly concentrated on single-family residential projects. From 2009 to 2017, he taught architectural design at the New School of Architecture of the Pontificia Universidad Católica in Ponce, directing the capstone project program during its formative period. Jose Ricardo Coleman-Davis Pagan was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He studied at the Architectural Association in London, England, and graduated from Tulane School of Architecture in 1975. His professional experience began while working with his father, H.T.C. Davis, and afterward with Toro Ferrer Arquitectos. He established his own practice in 1984, today Coleman-Davis Pagan Arquitectos. His professional career spans 5 decades, and his contributions to the island architectural legacy have been in the field of historic preservation, the adaptive reuse of existing structures, as well as a substantial portfolio of contemporary architecture. In 2018, he was elevated to the College of Fellows of the American Institute of Architects. And today, he also directs a graduate thesis studio at the School of Architecture of the University of Puerto Rico. So, thank you for your time. We will then now see a presentation by Luis Ayala. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the invite. I'm gonna give you a short talk, about half an hour, on the work that we've been doing at Ayala Rubio Arquitectura. Probably for like the last, I'm going to concentrate on the last 10 years, but especially on 3 projects that I want to talk a little bit more about. One that is completed, one that is under construction right now, and another one that is still in design. Ayala Rubio Arquitectura, as of now, we're a group of about 5 people. It's me and mostly a group of young guys that graduated recently from the architecture school at the Pontificia Universidad Católica in Ponce. And we're working on projects that range from residences to a couple of projects that stem from the reconstruction efforts that the island is going through after Hurricanes Maria and after the 2020 earthquakes. These are a few of them. I'm gonna go more in detail. This is Casa San Jacinto. This is a project I worked on in 2012, completed in 2015 with the group 3AV Arquitectura. A couple of guys that I met at the School of Architecture at the Pontificia when the school started in 2009.
Luis, sorry to interrupt. I think you are not showing your slides.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Doing something wrong. Sorry. First time I give one of these speeches. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Here we go. Casa San Jacinto. This is like Victor mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you know, architecture in the island is all about the view and the place and the site. And the projects I'm going to show tonight all have to do in one way or another with the issue of site. The first ones that I'm going to show have been, there's a little bit of constraint in the way that we've worked because of you know, the needs of the client and the kind of relationship that we form with the client. The projects I'm going to show later, I think, demonstrate a lot more trust between our clients and the work that we're doing, and which is, I think, you know, in terms of trust and communication is so important for a project to go well and to end up being something that you're actually, you know, happy and proud about. This house is it's located in Guanica, which is a town in the south of Puerto Rico. It's right in front of the beach. It's totally about the view, but it was also about a, you know, large area in terms of program, which we helped to deal with. It did give us an opportunity to, you know, play with the form and build something that was fitting for the place, even though it's a bit, the scale is a bit big. This is another house that we worked on, also in the period 2012, finishing in 2016. Also worked with the guys from 3A Arquitectura. This is in Peñuelas. It's it seems like a bigger house than it is. It's in terms of interior square footage, it's only about 2,500 square feet. But the tallness of the spaces and the way that it's distributed, because all the rooms are facing the view, it seems a bit larger than it is, especially when you look at it from the highway. It's you know, from the beginning, the owner wanted it to be one level house, which was contrary to what the site was telling us to do. But we, you know, so we ended up working with a 2-level house that has the garage and the entrance on the top, and then you come down to where the rest of the house is sitting, which is only in one level, you know. These are a few shots of the interiors. This is another house on the side of, another view from the side of the house looking west. Also in Peñuelas, this is a bit of a bigger project. We had the chance to work in a small hotel for the town of Peñuelas. This is, it's actually a local government sponsored project. It's interesting because the way it was developed, it actually originated as a design competition for second-year students at the School of Architecture. We had to work with these kids that, you know, basically were beginning their career as architectural students, and get them to come up with concepts, different form and volume concepts to deal with the program and to deal with the fact that the site is located right in front of the plaza in Peñuelas. The plaza in Peñuelas, although it's a civic and traditional space, in the case of Peñuelas, it's actually like a very modern plaza. It was recently totally rebuilt, and all the buildings around the plaza, or I'd say 80% of the buildings around the plaza, are recent or built in the last 20, 30 years. So we kind of had a bit of a license to do something new and modern, but we still wanted to, in terms of form and volume and program, to relate to the plaza. So hence the the balcony and the fact that all the rooms open up to the plaza, and the main halls on each of the levels face the plaza. So the building basically works like a lantern for the plaza, or like a place to stand and look at the plaza when there's night activities, which is something that they do a lot in Peñuelas. It's a very active town. They like to use that space. These are models and views that we worked with another group of students that was chosen to work with our firm after the mayor of the town chose this scheme from one of our students, Andrea Gonzalez. And so we developed a team of architects that, my partners and students from second, third, and fourth and fifth year, who stayed all summer with us, learning how to, just basically going through their first internship. It was a really good experience. Here's some details. This is the view from the balcony, looking towards the church in the center of the plaza. Detail of the screens on the facade. This is one of my favorite shots. It's basically all the hallways from the third to the sixth level look very much the same, except, of course, well, the screens change a bit, and the views get even better as you get higher. And this is a view of the spaces in between the rooms. It's hard to tell from the pictures, but the building is actually divided in 4 little towers with spaces, vertical spaces that flow through the rooms. And so when you're walking the hallways, you can actually look all the way out to the mountains on the north, as at the same moment that you're looking towards the plaza in the south. This is another residential project. This one we're still working on. This is a house still under design. We started in 2019, and then the earthquakes in early 2020 basically stopped the project. We didn't really know if we were going to continue with it. The owner was looking into maybe building something smaller because this is a 4-story house on a really long and thin lot. It's only about 35 feet wide, but it's about 180 feet long, the site, which actually gave us the opportunity to design a house that fits in like one of the townhouses in many residential developments in Puerto Rico. The house is about 28 feet wide. This is, again, the view. It's a privileged lot right in front of the beach. This is a view from the street, the facade. And as you enter the house, and the rear of the house facing the ocean. One thing, going back to another one of Victor's comments, the thing about ventilation and working with the climate, that is something that we struggle a bit with because of the need for air conditioning in all these houses. Sometimes our clients are a little reluctant to have all the natural ventilation that we would probably suggest. And the houses end up working well when you open them up, but they also, there's a lot of glass involved, and there's the opportunity to fully close it and turn on the AC when you need to. This is another townhome, actually, that we're designing in Palmas del Mar. We're almost done with this project. This one also took a while, but for different reasons. Palmas del Mar is a residential development which encourages a certain style of design. And we actually had to design this house 3 times in order to find something that the client was willing to accept, because he didn't really want to go for the Spanish Mediterranean look that Palmas del Mar imposes. So for a while, we didn't even know if we were actually going to have permission to build this. The committee at the end accepted the project. We have a little, Spanish tile thing going on the top level. The idea was, the house is in front of the marina, so the idea was to, have a residence that was very open on 3 sides. The 4th side is going to be, just a blind side facing the next townhouse. And we are definitely doing some, structural gymnastics with some parts of the house. After working with our structural engineer, that there's a few columns that have gotten a bit bigger and longer, and but it still looks, the way we wanted it to. This is a view of the interior and the exterior terrace and the night view. This, I'm gonna change gears. I'm gonna talk about a couple of projects that we've been working on since, in 2020. One that required, this is a post-seismic rehabilitation in a warehouse building in the Playa de Ponce sector, which is a historical sector right in front of the ocean in Ponce, where we live, which is where, basically it was a port. This building originally it was a series of buildings, 3 of them that got turned into one single warehouse. And what happened was that the all of the interior partitions and the wooden roofs, as they got lost, either through fire or just for not being used for a long time, the building was turned into a warehouse, and a steel structure was brought in. The exterior walls, which are made of stone and brick, and which at some parts go up to like 2 feet thick, they suffered some damage. Some parts where the cracks in the walls went all the way through, and others weren't as bad, but some walls got pretty shaken up. And after working with the project for some time, and working with our engineers and historical rehabilitation consultants, Pio Garcia, which somebody here in Ponce, we came to the conclusion that the steel structure was hurting the original brick walls in the way that it was attached, in the way that they were both attached together. The original design contemplated joining the new columns to the existing walls as a way of, well, the intention was to give the walls some lateral strength because of the middle walls had been removed, but it ended up doing the exact opposite. Because when the earthquake shook, the way that the masonry walls move is different from the way that the the steel structure in the center of the building moved. And the steel structure is, it's pretty big, so all that momentum got to the brick walls, and the damage was done. So, as big as the what you see in the floor plan, the left side of the building is the part that is originally made of three historical, buildings. They were built in the 1800s. Maybe the oldest one could be as old as 1875 or so. And maybe the youngest one could be, 1900 or so. The damage was concentrated on those three walls that are on the edges of the building. So basically, what we had to do was build these three large columns to just have enough weight and enough mass to provide the wall that was worst with enough support for it to withstand the forces of another earthquake if it should happen. The structural work was kind of interesting, and the other part of the job that was interesting was to, when we had to work with the finishes, we brought in Garcia to teach the workers exactly how to mix in the mortar, line-based mortar, to make it all, work with the historical masonry. So that took a while. This probably took a few months to complete, even though the damage wasn't, that bad in relation to how big the building is. Another project that we're working on that has to do with the reconstruction efforts is the La Perla Theater in Ponce. For this one, we just completed our construction documents, and the building is going to bid, I think, starting next week. This is a view of the original building, which, coincidentally, this was built also in the 1800s, and in 1920, 1918, there was another earthquake that shook the island from the west, and it damaged a few, or quite a few, historical properties in Ponce, and the theater was one of them. It was actually rebuilt almost completely in the 1940s with federal funds. So, it's funny that history is just repeating itself. Although, luckily now, the building structurally is pretty sound, but the damage from the hurricanes, it was just mostly water infiltrating and damage in interior finishes and draperies and carpets and seating and ceilings and some of the electricity, that kind of damage. So this sort of work has been keeping us busy for the last year and a half. It's been actually quite interesting to go through all the drawings and redraw everything and make sure that we're showing everything as it is, to make sure that we can that we have an inventory of all the damage, detail fashion to deal with FEMA. This is my favorite picture from the theater. This is the main lamp on the auditorium room that needs to be completely reworked. And now I'm going to talk about those three houses that I mentioned. This is this one we call Casa Vierta. We just finished this a couple of years ago. It's a single family home. Again, this is the view, so important. It's a single family home located in the south of Puerto Rico. It's in Ponce. It's on the hills facing the Caribbean Sea. It's a suburban area. We have a couple of houses not that far, but there's a lot of open space around, and the views are completely open to the north and to the south. The idea for the house was to, first of all, place it on top of the hill to have, the unobstructed views towards the ocean and towards the mountains to the north, and to try to, I think of it as trying to taming the site. The site seemed too big for the house. So we tried to, use up some of the space by separating the house into 3 blocks. One of which includes all the bedrooms and family room that sits right in the middle. There's a center block that has the kitchen, and the kitchen is basically the dining room. There's no formal dining room in this house. And another block that has actually 2 levels with the garage on the bottom and the living room on top. The 2 open spaces that form are, one of them is the entrance and one of them is a patio that works as another sort of open living room. The house, just like the other one I showed, it doesn't have a lot of habitable interior area, but the roofs are, ample. There's a lot of overhang, and so from like a 2,500 square foot home in terms of interiors, it turns out it grows out to be like a 4,000 square foot home when you consider all the covered area. This diagram sort of shows the way that it works. The house is placed on the top of the lot. It's divided in 3 parts, and those parts are modified and pushed around a bit to fit the program and to bring in the spine that is the central circulation hallway. And then all the details get put in there. The roof gets worked out, and the 2 trees that get sort of inserted inside the house show up. This is the site showing the approach going uphill to get to where the garage is. And this is a plan of the residence, with the living area that I mentioned on the left, entrance patio, kitchen, the main patio, and then the living bedroom areas with the family room to the right. This is the front elevation and the section, which is really simple. Shot out the roof during construction. And here's some pictures taken by Paola Quevedos, not even a year ago. This is the entrance sequence. That's the entrance stair and the hallway on top. again, the stairway and the hallway that goes all the way from the entrance and the living area towards the bedroom block, going in front of the kitchen. All the metal screens are openable. We made it so that you could close it and have everything, walk from one place to the other at night in a closed, secure hallway. But I mean, their preference is to leave it open all the time. This is, you can see the family room and that main patio. This is the rear of the house, looking at the living room and the entrance patio again. Kitchen is on the left. And the kitchen, which is definitely the centerpiece. Family room. All right, this is, I'm gonna show you this other house. We call it Casa Del Arco because of its obvious reference. This is a project that is under construction. It's a bit different from the other two projects. It's the same in the way that I feel about it, that the owner, we developed a sort of good communication, good working relationship with the owner, and he, let us do this, which we always found surprising. Again, it's a great site with a view directly looking at Casa Vierta in the south. But this interesting constraint about this project was that the lot had already been impacted. When somebody bought the lot a few years ago, they went through the motions of cutting a piece of it out and making it flat. And so we felt like we had to, work with this frame that was given to us for practical structural reasons. And so I figured that the house needed to be some sort of a box that fit into that space. The street is way higher than the cut in the lot is. So the house was going to sink into the site, and it was going to be sort of out of view from the street if it wasn't high enough. And that's something that the owner was worrying about, having an actual facade that shows up to the street. I'm going to take you quickly through, the design process and some of the construction process. This is me thinking about, how you divide spaces and work with the what would turn out to be like negative space within the house, trying to make something out of that box that I knew was gonna, make the house. This is a Lego model that we did at the office, just playing around to see what came out. Eventually we came to this, which actually looks like the Lego piece. The idea was to have, as opposed to having the rooms or the areas separated horizontally, as like we did in Casa Vierta, the same thing would happen, but vertically. It was sort of an experiment. The yellow areas represent those open areas that communicate, levels through the house. Eventually we came to this, to give it some order by using some sort of a screen on the side of the house that's looking south, which eventually turned into this. And this is what we presented the client, and this is what he let us do. So this is pretty much the end result, you know. Although all the work on the side and the pool and the terraces, we are still working on those, even as we're building the house. First level, second level. This is the main section going through the entrance stairway, the entrance area, and down through the pool. These are some fun sections that we did for a presentation some time back that show the variations of the sectional area going through the house, under the house, around the house, and both in the short axis and the long axis. The facade, some more views. This is what's supposed to happen in the front of the house. We did some interior studies for the owner. And I'm going to take you through a quick show of what construction looks like here in Puerto Rico. This is, here you can see the site, you know, how square it was. It's a good rectangle. This is foundation work. This is all reinforced concrete. Integrated systems are for plumbing and electricity. It's not what you usually build in New Orleans. Turn it around. This is the rear and the construction of the arch and the concrete screen. The house that this photo is from like a year ago. Actually, I'm sorry, from like 6 months ago, and it still looks like that because you know, all the aluminum work and the windows and the glass work is just really late at this moment. We hope to start doing that next month. Some pictures of the interiors, the open areas. This is the stairway well. That's toward the rear with the archway again. All right, and now I'm going to show you another project that is still being designed. We're working on construction documents now. This is a smaller house in Fajardo. Also a lot with kind of a nice view. It looks sort of towards El Yunque, which is that tropical forest that Victor mentioned a while ago, and towards the sea also. It's a single-story house, but like Casa Vierta, we sort of worked a basement in there to work with the terrain and take advantage of the fact that we had to, you know, bring columns all the way down to firm footing anyway. It's a house for a single person with a studio that can work as an extra bedroom. And the house is basically really open with a big, comfortable terrace looking, you know, towards the north west towards El Yunque. This is like this drawing. This is what the owner gave me. Kind of looks something like Mies van der Rohe or something like that. It's kind of fun to get something like that from a client. This is actually my iPhone sketch, and little model that we made, just playing around with shapes and forms and spaces and thinking about the lot and the way the terrain works. The house, it didn't end up like that, but it was, you know, just like a study. From that, we went on to this, which is pretty much what we ended up designing. Here, I'm just going to show you some construction drawings, site plan, floor plan, a couple elevations. That's how a section works. The piece on top is a water tank, which is something that every house in Puerto Rico has now, and we just made it part of the architecture. And this is, you know, what we expect to be the end product. It's a concrete house with a steel terrace. Is basically a steel structure with wood pieces to give it shade and a plastic roof just to let the sun shine through. The piece on the left is actually like a shower. We expected this to turn into some sort of Airbnb piece, so we wanted to give it a few interesting places to hang out in. After the design, it turns out that it might not be that, and the owner is just going to use it all year long. Stuff on this side facing the street. It's pretty closed up. And that's it. And that's us. Thank you. Hope I didn't take too long.
Not at all. Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll turn it over, if we could, to J.R. Coleman-Davis.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back at Tulane, although it's virtual, but I feel like I'm there. And the preparing of this talk, I went back to school. It's been many, many years. And I'm going to, in this short talk, I'm gonna talk briefly about home, where we are, what inspires us, the continuity that I think Victor talked a lot of it about it, and which, being older, I have connection with those modern masters, which I've been very fortunate to have that continuity. Then I'm going to talk about certain elements that we repeat in our projects, and then at the very end, I'll give very quickly some case study houses that we recently finished. And as Victor showed it in a different image, but I want to show the Caribbean. I'm fortunate to have been born and to mature in Puerto Rico, only living away during my architectural studies at Tulane from 1970 to 1975, which included time in London during my 4th year at the Architectural Association. These years were fructuous, living and learning from New Orleans with motivating teachers, to name a few: John Lawrence, William Turner, Steve Jacobs, Marvin Sevely. Also learning the region's architectural history from Samuel Wilson and Bernard Lemon, that taught us that the Gulf Coast vernacular is in many ways similar to the Caribbean patrimony. In England, I was most impressed by Elias Zengelis, Babar Mumtaz, Peter Cook, Charles Jenks, as well as coinciding with other students that today are architects. To name a few, Zaha Hadid, David Chipperfield, and John Pawson. Puerto Rico is an idyllic Caribbean island, the smallest of the Greater Antilles, and located at the gateway of the Lesser Antilles. You see the Lesser Antilles that end up in Trinidad, Tobago, and the Venezuela coast. After a millennium of paradise for our earliest inhabitants, the Taínos, the island has confronted 5 centuries of colonialism. During these 500 years, our history has been precarious: invasions, hurricanes, and the lot. Yet, from the end of World War II to 1990, we experienced a cultural and economic surge that Victor talked about, only to collapse due to misgovernment, which led to bankruptcy that still plagues us today. This is our home. You see the mountains, the caves, the fabulous light, and the ever-present water. Tonight, I'll concentrate on the shoreline, since I'm most akin to the coast and where most of my work is situated. I'll start with the pristine beaches of La Mona, known as the Caribbean Galapagos. Here we have the ocean, the natural beauty of the colors, the transparency, the energy of the water. Nature provides brilliant flowers, year-round fruit, roots as claws, as you see here, a ceiba, spiky bark, and transparent miniature frogs. The coast and its textures, as seen in its natural state, to the composite historic walls. The undersea, where life evolves, is still alive with multiple corals. When you see brain coral, antler coral, sea fans, and a myriad of fish. You see in their chart. The extraordinary light of our outer islands, in this case, Boulevard, known as one of the Spanish Virgin Islands. You see a view east and a view west. And I'll be talking eventually about a project we're doing right here. And I'll give you the gradation from the sea and the cliff, our rammed earth walls, and our blue cobblestones of our ancient city of San Juan. I want to touch on certain influences and impacts in my life. For instance, this building where I grew up when I was in high school and junior high school, designed by one of our masters, Tom Marvell. Some of the projects that my father worked on, the school where I went to school since kindergarten to high school, was a Spanish, like California mission style house project with interior courtyards. And then the projects of, like Victor showed some of these, of one of my mentors, Toro Ferrer. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then La Fortaleza, which is our oldest continually occupied structure for almost nearly 500 years. Upon graduation in 1975, I worked with my father HTC Davis, inheriting his studio when my parents moved to the US in the fall of 1979. First to New Orleans, where he taught for 3 years at our school, and next to the University of Louisiana. In 1982, while still maintaining my small studio, I seized the opportunity to collaborate with a local pioneer modernist firm, Toro Ferrer, that Victor alluded to, further learning from close contact with the two partners until their retirement a few years later. I'm certain that this stint earned me my real master's degree, no doubt contributing to securing new and valuable commissions. The first 2 decades, most of my work was rehabilitation, preservation, extensions to existing structures, principally within the historic zones of Old San Juan and the town of Ponce in the South Coast. This led to more complex contemporary buildings, yet still involved with interventions in historic buildings, including 1930s mission style, California mission style. You see here in the theater, and here at the University of Puerto Rico, and mid-century modernist icons. This, in a few words, speaks of my maturity as an architect within the context of our island's reality. Given that I only have 20 to 30 minutes to present the work of almost 5 decades, tonight I'll focus on the value of light, air, and craft in our projects. You'll see many, many images. Hopefully, from the image, you'll realize where our focus is. We do deal with skylights, the fabulous light of the Caribbean as it enters through the ceilings, through transparent stairs, through skylights, use of exposed board form concrete and brilliant colors, and here the light using tinted concrete. You see a photograph of Dream Inn, which is a 13-room guest house in Ocean Park in San Juan that has the use of the roof, the skylight, freestanding stair, and a house we did on the coast very near, also in Ocean Park, where the light comes from the sea, from the roof, from the west oriented facade. Again, more skylights. This one that has it's covered in stone. In our restorations in Old San Juan, using opening up to the sky, the houses tend to be a little bit dark. And other projects, for instance, this is a skylight that we did at one of the marketplaces we'll see a little bit later, and a school, a fine arts school that you'll see here in this project. This is a pretty complex project that we did in 2000. It's a fine arts school where each department, dance, music, fine arts, the theater, and the administration, each has its courtyard, and also perforated by numerous skylights. Roof terraces, very important in the tropics. Here we have, again, Dream Inn. This is La Fortaleza that looks onto the bay, and it's something that's been used for centuries, the use of the roof terraces. And here a house in Park Boulevard where we use also the roof. And then the other house in Ocean Park that here you see this picture shows the shoreline and this terrace that's usually used. These are umbrellas that open, and then on the north side you look at the ocean. On the south side is where all the services are and all the solar panels that run a great part of the house. And here you have the south facade with its solar. The use of patios, interior courtyards. Here we have different examples, and I'll show you. This is a school, a high school we did in San Juan that you see here in an aerial photograph, again, with its patios, the main courtyard, and then the different departments, labs. This is the library and the cafeteria, all open into courtyards. And we preserved most of the existing trees on the perimeter. All these are mahogany trees. Again, patios. We have this. I'm going to show this. This is the housing project. It's a project that we did in Coamo, which is on the south coast, that also incorporates an extensive plaza. We have an aerial photograph of it, this plaza here, that all the apartments open on to this defensible space and communal space. And here in the drawing, it's repeated. These are very repeated modules, but positioned in different orientations with a beautiful view of the coast and the town of Coamo. Here, wall. How do we deal with walls? We have walls. You have the fine arts school with its repetitive columns. We have one of the beach houses with that's up in the air. Again, use of the first level as a communal space where the living exists on a second level that protects from tidal surge, that hurricanes will just go right through the house. Here, this house, you see in the drawing, this drawing of the ground floor, you see the ocean here, and the linear lap pool, and to see how the building is based, is put on these 15 columns, and just it's all very, very. This is just glass, so it's really very open on the ground floor. You see this drawing, this photograph of it, this area right here that you see with the dotted line. Again, how do we protect from the sun, which is intense? And these are risole. Most of it's looking south, where the play of the shadow and the light is ever changing. Here you see in different. This is the different 4 different projects. Here we painted it, and this is the social housing that I just showed, where we just painted it red and green. Here is this is the house that we did a few years back. That this is a facade that looks north. So really the overhangs are not that deep, because the north, we really don't get much sun, but we get a lot of valuable light, and you'll see some photographs on the inside of this. But again, you see the water is ever present. We have the use of sculptures. This is done for a Hindu family that's lived in Puerto Rico for the last 40 years, and they still, all these pieces were done in Bali. You see, this is the house that I just showed. This is the street facade, because it's a busy street, it's closed up with small windows. And then again, the use of breeze block, which you see this one, and you see there's a Dream In. This is also, this building and this building have the same orientation. Actually, they're basically one next to the other. And a house that we did in Old San Juan when I was a young architect, looking south. This is the house that I just showed you that looks on towards the ocean. And now we're gonna. This is the house that would use the breeze block that was finished 2 years ago. Again, the play of the breeze block, and actually below all this green area, there's the breeze block goes all the way to the ground. But here, because the main bedroom looks out on the street, it's filled with Mexican ivy, excuse me. And obviously defensible space in Puerto Rico, the reality, we have to have fences. And that house has, you see it, this is the view from one of the rooms out towards the street. Again, here, exemplify the doors and windows. This is the fine arts school where the doors closed. We use these board batten doors, similar to the doors in the old city. And here they open, they pivot. So the light comes in. These are actually the fine arts studios. And here we have Dream In that has a screen that cuts off the light, and also it gets closed at night because of security. And this is a project that I'm going to show now. This is a project that I did when I was a very young architect. And you see here, it was a wood roof, and the windows open up. Actually, they're high windows that open up for ventilation. We use jalousies in almost all our projects. I think that the president is this La Fortaleza, is a gallery. These are louvers that date back 150 years, and they operate. And so we do the same thing, but obviously with modern louvers. This is a project that we did back in 1979. That's still in very good shape, the house in Old San Juan. And even a very simple house that the installation of these louvers make a huge difference in the interior of the house. And then again, we have this is Casa Sham, we showed it before. This is the inside. This is the north facade where the louvers modulate the light and the skylights that coming through to a curved stair, and then the use of a very rustic exposed concrete. Here, also other windows. You see here, this is the house that I showed you with the ivy. This is the north facade that has the light comes in from the side, and from this building, which you'll see a little bit later, this is a police headquarters that had to be protected from fire from the neighbors. I mean, really gunfire. So the windows are hidden, and they provide light indirectly. This is the, I'll show you this. This is the Rio Piedras market. This is the biggest market in the Caribbean. A very, very big building that we remodeled and gave it a new facade. Again, with louvers, some louvers that are solid, other ones that have glass. And you see here in the section, this is a section of the louvers, these louvers. And this was done knowing that we lose power in Puerto Rico all the time. So these windows can be open so the breeze can come in. Then the use of balconies, galleries, and terraces in different projects. This is a very restoration that we did in 1982, a long time ago. And this is, again, a very fantastic balcony that is used a lot by the inhabitants. And again, different views of different houses. This is a project that sort of a difficult project for us, that we were approached by the owner, by the client, to build him a Tuscan house. So I took it as a challenge, and we gave him a country house, a Caribbean country house, with columns and with a hydraulic cement tile, and the texture on the walls of with exposed concrete, but in sort of like a sheathing, with a beautiful view of the mountains. And then again, the balconies and terraces. This is the police headquarters. Some of the other houses we're doing here. This is the house I just showed you, the house in the mountains. And this is the police headquarters, where you have a 5-story building, a 2-story building, a garage for fixing the automobiles, and a storage unit. And they're all connected by a gallery that the public uses, with courtyards, a triangular courtyard and a triangular courtyard. But this is the gallery where we joined all these loose buildings. And then this is the house in the mountains with 18 columns, and the gallery that's on the west and north elevation. And then more examples of balconies, galleries, and terraces. La Fortaleza. Here you have the beautiful gallery that when the light comes through, it shines on the walls. It's ever moving light and shadow. And go back. Here's the high school, and look as it looks into the courtyard. Again, with the light modulated by perforated screens. You see it. This is another shot of it, and this shot also of the galleries. This is the site plan of La Fortaleza. Like I said, this is a building that's been in constant occupation for nearly 500 years. It's a fabulous, fabulous building. That this is the main courtyard, where you see the gallery that goes around, and the different, you see how the building has evolved through the 5 centuries. And it's very formal gardens. And this is the wall of the city that Victor showed in his presentation. Then the views, the obsession with the views. Here you have a house we did in Park Boulevard near Ocean Park that we always have the horizons in our site. Here you have a house, also a house in Ocean Park, and here the house in the mountains. And this is the house that we did in the late 70s that opens onto a garden in Old San Juan. This is the house in Park Boulevard. You see here in a section how it's very free on the ground floor. and you have the interior courtyard with skylights, and you see here in plan, and it opens completely onto the water. And then obviously the stair is part of this courtyard of triple height and double heights. Again, the horizons. You have the house in the mountains, looks out on the clear day, you can see the ocean. The project we did in one of the lakes in the interior of the island. And this is a park, urban park that we did in San Juan, that opens onto a lagoon. And then another shot of the Fine Arts School in Carolina that I showed you before. And this is a photograph of the park, the public park, when it was recently finished. Right now, obviously, all the trees have grown, but here it shows the very simple organization of the park. A project with a very low budget, but it's been very successful because people use it for kayaks and stand-up paddles, and this is where they stored all the kayaks and the stand-up paddles. And it has a historic building that was saved next to a power station that had to stay. Well, you see it's in the midst of what we call Condado, and here the ever-present ocean and the highway. Here we have, I'll give you a few examples of the textures and details. Here we have the board formed concrete, the stamped colored murals, the mosaics, the hardware doors with the door pulls, these custom built lighting fixtures. You see here, in this section here, go back. Then we've done murals in many places. And then also the use of very simple materials. These are just 8x8 blocks stacked one on top of the other, and it becomes a handrail instead of getting too complicated. And also the walls separating this is a communal center from the rest of the vicinity. Here we have another view of textures. We have this house that I've shown in Ocean Park, where this sculptural wall we did in collaboration with a local architect, ceramist, and that he built on site. And then again, this is the Casa Sham, the Hindu house, with these sculptures brought from Bali, and the use of the Pechara flagstone, really. And then again, dreaming with murals that cover the elevator shaft. And then here you see the custom built lighting fixtures, and again this one, and the texture of the brickwork. And here we are, Jaime Suarez working on that wall I was talking about with fire and a custom built lighting fixture in the communal center. This is a bench that we designed for the park that was built by Escofet in Barcelona. And the project has multiple of these. This in this form, and then upside down forms another configuration. the building of the breeze block walls. Again, here, the details of the brickwork. And this is a very old photograph of the art that it takes to build all these things. And here are columns, how the columns are done little by little. Right? Here, this is probably everything put together. The board form concrete, the skylights, the light from the north. You see here the swimming pool. That the house looks down, and it's very transparent in the vertical sense, and towards the ocean. Then, again, this is probably the last slide about textures. We've been very careful in making sure that our projects are built to the finest detail. And these are actually full-scale models of the walls that we're doing on this project we're building now. It is under construction. These are you see them here finished, but this actually is a model, a full-scale model of cantilever treads, and you'll see a little bit later what we're shown. And here's one try which didn't work, and then we ended up doing this. And then here's how in the process of taking away the mold, you see some of the wood that created this beautiful texture. And then the building of these lighting fixtures made out of a PVC pipe, 8-inch diameter pipe, just perforated, and it's in plastic, and because it's salt air, they last forever. And wherever we have imperfections in the concrete, we've been experimenting with putting coral stone and rocks and shells. And here I have a column in a project that we did that adds to the interest of it. And then this is the project that I showed you, the full-scale models. The project we're working on now, also in Ocean Park, that we've had the privilege of working with Marcio Pagan, better known as a star architect at Studio MK27 from Brazil. And this is a project that we're currently working on now, and should be finished by next year. The case study. So this is the last part of the presentation. I'm going to show you the case studies of two projects. They're very similar. These are houses that where the ventilation is maximized to increase the potential for cooling by using fully louvered window walls and sliding or pivoting interior partitions. Large overhangs provide shade and shelter from driving rain. This is Villa Pabellón. This is also an Ocean Park. You see this wide overhangs. Again, very simple construction, louvered window walls. You see here in sight of Ocean Park, this is an urbanization. It's probably the most privileged urbanization in San Juan. And we see the house that I'm going to be showing, and then all the rest of the projects that we have worked on in the last decades. And here's our office. This is actually the neighborhood I grew up in, and is my home. In plan, you see very simple columns, the window walls, those are all the way around. And then you have one bedroom, a library, the kitchen, a stair to the basement, and very loose, open bathrooms. As you see, they're not closed in. And these are the pivoting doors And you'll see in an animation, you'll see how they work. I showed this slide because it shows the extents of the louvered walls. You see all this here, all these elevations that show the doors and the walls. And this wall that looks towards the street. The ventilation, it just flows right through the house. The house is capable of working off grid completely with rainwater harvesting and a solar panel system on the roof that powers the house completely, the house. You have exploded axonometric. You see the basement, the house, the ceiling, the roof. That is all inverted beams to create these very large overhangs, and then the solar panels. And the way it sits on the site, and this is a spontaneous growth yard. It opens onto the ocean. This shows how the project opens up. You see here the wind, how they shift, and this becomes one big room, and this becomes one big room. And the bathrooms are very loose, and the access to the basement. And this balcony addresses the street, and this addresses the ocean. Here you see an aerial photograph. You'll see the roof with the inverted beams and the solar panels. This is another house we did back in the 80s or early 90s. That they work, the houses work together because it's the same owner. Here again, the spontaneous growth front north yard. That's actually is grown much more than that right now. And then some more pictures for photographs of openings in the ceiling. I like to show that the light changing the shadow here. You see a lot of this is light in the morning. And then the stream overhangs, the vegetation. Again, the walls, very deep overhangs. More details of how the louvers have reference to the concrete or vice versa, and some of the details of the board formed concrete and the front fence. Again, like I said originally, we have to deal with security, so we end up doing fences. And so why not do a fence that alludes to the original vegetation of that area, which was a swamp. This other project, and this is the last project I'll show, it's a house that we did in the island of Culebra. I'll show you now how it's sited. It's a take on the country house that's elevated above the ground, where you live on the second level, and on the first level you have all the services of tending the yard and the crops and the vegetation. This is the cistern. This solid piece is the cistern. Probably the only solid section of the house is the cistern. And you see here in sight, this is from here, all this area is a nature preserve. You can't fish, you can't anchor. And so there's a fantastic privileged site here in these two houses. There are actually two houses, but I'll show one of them. It's on this shore. And here in the site plan, this is the house that I'll be showing. But it has an access to the water, beautiful ocean of coral reefs and many fish. It's a paradise. And here, see how similar this house is to the one I showed you, Villa Pabellón. Again, with columns that lift the house, lift the roof, and the walls are all window walls. You see it here. The only solid walls are this one, the bathroom, and the other bathroom, this wall. And all this is open, and also obviously the entrance foyer. And all this is all louvers. And then the central kitchen, the living dining room, and these two bedrooms, these doors slide open, and then it becomes a one big room. Then you open up the doors in each one of the bays, and the balcony gets incorporated into the house. There's a section through it. You see the cistern and the balcony and the louvers. So this is a house that's completely off grid. It has not connected to the city power or public water or anything. It just sits in the middle of a jungle. And here the way the overhangs are calibrated for the 22nd of December, where it just hits right here, and then it just keeps moving until summertime. You don't get any sun, you get it here, just a little bit. The windows never get sun. And here's a picture of the project in its context. And I like to, this is the interior with the sliding doors made of vertical hardwood slats, and we call it solarization of space. So here, the light is ever changing. From the morning to the afternoon, even you see it where the light even shows on the columns and on the sliding doors everywhere. It shows everywhere. And here you have pictures of the galleries. Here again in context, how it enters from the north. Very simple, very rustic exposed concrete. Here in the north facade. And here we show the same view when the house is closed with the louvers, and when open the doors, and the interior becomes, or the balcony becomes part of the interior, and vice versa. And the view to the south is ever present. You see again the balcony and the ever-changing shadows, and we sort of obsessed with the corners. How this is how we accept it as a corner. How the veranda turns the corners. And here at night, again, the light from the inside to the outside, and during the day. Here's some of this is the sliding doors that again, they're very similar to the doors that our vernacular houses have. And then the juxtaposition of the louvers with a very rustic concrete. Here it is in its setting. And this, you see the plantain trees and the ferns and the papayas. And this is all planted with an irrigation system that actually comes from the cistern. This is a very to the point quote from Thomas Marble, one of our masters. The sooner we realize that we are people of the Caribbean, that we belong to a unique climatic region in this planet, we'll be better architects if we recognize our sense of being. Know your past. The present is transient, ephemeral. Roots are essential. Without roots, we can't venture into a positive future and expect to share the light of spiritual and cosmic forces. Thank you. That's my current group of collaborators within the house with the cantilever treads. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for tremendous presentation and insight. I feel like we're several decades short and several hours short of and missing out on the totality of these careers. We do have there's a quick question in the Q&A coming from Professor Graham Owen on inquiring whether Mr. Coleman-Davis Pagan has a book or a monograph on this life's work. If not, maybe we need one. If anybody knows.
Yeah, well, we have talked about it because Ocean Park is again, like I said, it's one of probably the privileged neighborhood in San Juan because it's right on the ocean, the best beach in San Juan, and where many of my colleagues, good colleagues, have done projects. And yes, it would be. We've talked about it. Maybe one day we'll get it done. Yes.
Well, I invite everybody who's joining us to submit a question answer or even come online through Zoom if possible. We'd love to hear it. Here's a question coming in from Natalia Fuentes from Chilean School of Architecture. The question is, are the houses in Ocean Park being built as year-long residences or vacation homes and rentals, or both? When I was there this December, I heard a lot of anxiety about foreign money buying up real estate and condos, Ocean Park and elsewhere. That
is a reality, and it is controversial, and we talk about it all the time. This is part of again our bankruptcy. It's a direct consequence of our bankruptcy. That about 8 years ago, the government decided to give total tax exemption to people that could prove they had a large amount of money, and they could come to Puerto Rico and set up how and build or buy a house, and that they pay zero taxes, zero. So it's fantastic, and so we've been swamped in the last 6-7 years, and it's getting even worse. I mean, there's not well, I say worse because it affects us, and many of them are actually, some of them are my clients. I can't bad talk them, but yes, this has raised the cost of real estate. It's multiplied by sometimes by three times, and because Ocean Park and as Natalia says, Condado, which is just part of San Juan next to Ocean Park, and it's a situation that we have, and it's been also Airbnbs have become very, very prominent in the whole island. You see a map of Puerto Rico is full of Airbnbs in the mountains everywhere, and that is displaced a lot of the local investment, and which is something that we have to deal with because we are bankrupt, and the government needs investment. So that's brought other situation of not having enough people to construct, very little contractors. The cost of construction is skyrocketed, apart from obviously the global situation. So yes, it is a situation that we deal with every day, and that's probably a subject of another conference.
Any comments, Victor?
It's it's kind of a bittersweet situation. On the one hand, like Jose Ricardo says, it's kind of becoming a new wave of gentrification for the island, and which is really raising up prices for locals. But on the other hand, we have architects working and having an opportunity to doing great work, which is positive as well. So we're kind of, I have mixed feelings, but like I said, this is another topic that's complicated.
Yes, yes, yes.
In Puerto Rico.
Now I ask Luis, how has that affected Ponce on the South Coast?
In Ponce, I'd say, yeah, there's a few properties that have sold, you know, for amounts that in a normal moment they wouldn't have sold for so much money, I guess. So it's interesting. I mean, there's like everything in Puerto Rico, the issue gets political, you know. So that's why feelings, you know, get mixed in with the economical reality. But you know, it does bring work in. Some people are selling their property and having opportunities to do something else, you know. So I think at the end it's going to be something that it came and it went. At some point it's going to be over. And you know, I mean, real estate trends, that's the way they work. For one reason or the other, you know, things, they go up and they come down. So, you know, it's interesting, but I think a lot more architects in the San Juan area are dealing with this. Like JR says, you know, people are getting work. Most of our clients are local. So I'm not really getting in there. So I don't know.
Well, I don't want this to distract us from the tremendous body of work in practice that we've seen tonight. And I want to raise, if there's any final questions from the audience or considerations or commentary, please let us know here in these final moments. Victor, do you have any summary comments to lead us out and draw a conclusion for the evening?
I think one of the important things that you saw in both the presentations today is that architects who do contemporary design in Puerto Rico can also work in historic conservation or historic preservation. It's not, I think this is something where I've seen in the last few years where it's not like you do either one or the other. You kind of mix them in your practice where you take advantage of learning about the history and this legacy that we have. And we also have a lot of great architects who practice and are both also historical researchers. So there's a lot of great research and great work done in that respect. And I really think, I mean, that creates kind of like that link, you know, between the past and the present. And I really think it's important to in the end, learning about all these maybe main themes that Jose Ricardo showed in his presentation, you know, like what does it mean to be in Puerto Rico and all this texture and material, and kind of from his photos, you could almost smell the ocean and listen to the waves and all this atmosphere that's created. And another big one was, well, like the integration with the inside and the outside. I think both Luis and Jose Ricardo really touched on that in their projects. And I don't know, I think it was great to see ideas play out in both presentations.
Well, I want to thank everyone tonight, and it looks like we have a question coming in here. Knowing your travel to get where you are now, if you were a young architect coming out of school, what would you recommend to the new generation coming into the working market? And I just want to acknowledge that some of the work we saw tonight was this close connection across generations, which I found very inspirational. and to have those kinds of opportunities to learn and connect coming out of school and then working with masters, right? We get that. We have our masters here tonight, but maybe we'll ask this question of all of our guests. What would you offer as advice coming out for this new generation coming into the market?
Okay, I'll go. My advice would be to, just get all the experience that you can get working with someone. Take advantage of the mistakes of somebody else. Go out there as soon as you can when you're studying second year. Try to find an internship. Work every summer, work Christmas. If you really want to do this, you have to bust it. So find work and get experience. I left Tulane and I had a great time working in New Orleans for a while with Byron Mouton and Gabe Smith. And then I think I very prematurely left New Orleans and came down here to work for somebody else, but that didn't last long. So I ended up just going at it. But it takes a long time to get your gears in place and to actually do something that is sustainable. So get experience, find a job, go work.
I would say that the most important thing is to open your eyes. That things that you miss, but if you open and you feel and you look at the corners, you know where the light comes from, where how the seasons change. That's very important, to open your eyes, and also to draw. You need to draw and draw and draw. Then the other thing is, I think Luis touched on it, is you're lucky to get a mentor. I was very, very lucky. First, my father, because he was a practicing architect and also an academic. But that lasted 4 or 5 years. But then when I worked with Toro Ferrer, that opened my eyes of the passion of being an architect. The working Saturday, Sunday afternoon, at night, coming to the office on Monday morning with a new drawing to start working with, with your colleagues, to thinking architecture all the time. This is not a part-time job. This is a constant life. And if you're not ready for that, forget it. Find something else. So you need to have passion, and hopefully you get a mentor. And I've been mentored to many, many architects. So I think that I've done my job on that end.
Well, I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel like I've gotten something that's good for my soul. So thank you all. We've run and reached the end of our time tonight, but we're really most privileged to have you. And thank you so much for enjoying us. And this video will live on for others to see this work. So thank you all for joining us. And hopefully next time we'll see you in New Orleans. So take care, everyone.